Okay, so you know you want to clean your house. You know it's good to declutter your house, and you're like, I want to have the time and the flexibility to travel and to spend more time in relationships. I just feel so anxious and bogged down, not bogged down, by all of the stuff around me. So I went through the same transition a couple years ago, and as you guys know, as a holistic wellness coach, I help people to do this. And then, as if that's not enough, my husband and I are getting ready to start traveling for 3 months. So we've really had to take our minimalism seriously and simplify our belongings down to the absolute minimum. And so I've asked a lot of you guys, I've said, what are the main questions that you guys have regarding decluttering your homes and simplifying your lifestyle? What kind of questions do you have that you would like to have answered? And these are some of the top ones. So I think I have 8 here. So these are the top questions that I frequently get asked. Where do I even start with decluttering? So let's start with the big one first, because that's a lot of it. We look around, we're like so overwhelmed because we have so much stuff, and we're like, I just want to simplify it, but where do I even begin to simplify and declutter my home? So effectively cleaning out that lifetime of clutter. So some people differ on how they like to do this, but one of the approaches is to tackle the biggest area first. And so as you look around your house and you're like, if I tackled this biggest project first, I would feel so much better about the rest of it. And I will say that is honestly not typically my approach. And I'll tell you why in a second here, but it works for some people, so I don't want to discount it, and I want to share it with you. So some people like to tackle that biggest area first because it does help simplify the rest of the process. And it's like, okay, I knocked that one out, that's good. For others of us, and for many of those that I work with, we actually want to start with one of the smaller areas so that we can feel that success in that small area first. And so once we get kind of the hang of it and get a routine in one area, then we can start to tackle those bigger projects. We can develop a bit of a routine and a system, and before we have to tackle that biggest project. And so I would say that a lot of the people that I work with, we start with the smallest area first, and then we progress to those larger areas, and that's also what I did as well. So if you're wondering where to start, you can either start with the biggest or the smallest area. But I will suggest, for no matter what you do, is to do it all at once, and follow a plan that takes you one step at a time, And the reason for this is because I previously, the other times I've tried to declutter or help other people declutter, they say I got started and then I organize this one area and then I go into another area and realize that I have the same system, only slightly different somewhere else. And so we can duplicate that system all over our houses if we're not careful, and we may lose track of where we've started putting things. So I definitely suggest doing it all at once, no matter where you end up deciding to start. So create that plan, create a system that's going to help you to do it all at once. Another frequently asked questions is what if I need it later? Now this is a question for me as well. It's like, but what if I need it? And we want to hold on to those things, but a lot of times my rule of thumb is, have I used it in the last year? And have I used it in the last 6 months? And so if the answer to either of those questions is no, sometimes it's a seasonal thing that is only applicable for a certain season. So like a coat, if I haven't worn it in 9 months, okay, well I'm going to need it for the winter time, so I'm going to hold on to one of those coats. But for instance, if I have something that's supposed to be a regular use item that I just haven't used in 6 months or a year, I'm just going to get rid of it, because obviously it's not important enough for me to have had to use it in that time. So that can help you if you're feeling like, what if I need this later? Just do that assessment. Ask yourself, have I needed this in the last 6 months or the last year? And then just be okay with letting that go if the answer is no. It's pretty rare to get rid of something that we need, but it's also something that is typically pretty easily and pretty cheaply replaced. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Some people say, I feel guilty throwing things away because it just feels wrong. And for this, I want to ask you kind of what your money story is. And so for a lot of us, it feels wrong to throw things away because we have some kind of, we were brought up to always appreciate and value the things that we have. And, at times we haven't had that much money. And so we want to value and appreciate what we have. But looking closely at your money story and assessing what is it that makes it so hard? What about it feels wrong or feels bad about trying to hold on to or actually trying to let go of those things? What is it that feels wrong about trying to let go of those things? And once you address that kind of belief and dive into that maybe a little bit more, it can become easier to start to let those things go. You can also reframe getting rid of things and decluttering in a more positive way by using what you're getting rid of to give to others. So what I mean by that is, do you know of a family in need, or can you figure out where to find a family in need? Are there any refugees in your area that can really benefit from the stuff that you're getting rid of? Are there people that their house just recently burned down? And finding those kind of connections in your local area, a good place to donate those materials, helps it to not feel so wrong when you're getting rid of it because at least it's going to good use. At least somebody can sift through it and find what they need, and then they don't have to be in such a state of poverty because you've been able to give them that gift. And so if it does feel wrong, that's another way that you can kind of work with that and also make it something that's beautiful, that's a gift to others who are in need. Some of you have told me, no matter how much I get rid of, I just seem to buy more. And for this one, you're wondering about the self-discipline and how do I keep from continuing this cycle? So I want to ask you a couple questions about that. So if you are finding that you can't seem to stop spending, what is it that is satisfied when you spend? And what I mean by that is sometimes if we are feeling at a loss in another area, we feel out of control, we'll use other things to try and cope or cover for the fact or compensate for the fact that we don't have something in another area. And so maybe you've been feeling unsettled, and maybe you feel out of control, and going and buying new things and feeling like you have some sense of newness or some sense of change when really you want to move. Like you want to move houses or you want new friends or something. And so there's something about buying stuff that satisfies that need for you. And so identifying that is really going to help you to figure out, okay, so that's actually the root of this, because actually a lot of times that clutter that we're surrounding ourselves with, at first it gives us a sense of joy and it's like, oh, this is new, this is exciting, but then over time that kind of wears off. And so really looking at, why do I keep spending here and why do I keep doing this? And being able to process that and assess that with either a coach or a therapist, or maybe even just within yourself, and you're like, okay, so, this is why this feels nice. You can address that belief and start to break through that. So that's a foundational first step question, is why am I doing this? The next thing is, how do I get my family on board? So some people find that they are living with non-minimalists, and they are living with people who are resistant to them being minimalist. And so they're trying to simplify their homes and get rid of things, and then their husband's like, well, I like my stuff, don't get rid of my stuff. And then some of us wives, we've come back and been like, well, this is how it's going to be, and I'm just going to throw away your stuff then. How do you like that? And then we kind of, that's not good either, and that's definitely going to make them more resistant, so we don't want to do that. But we cannot necessarily change our family members. We can't change who they are. And for me as a vegan as well, my husband's still not vegan, and there are going to be things about our lives that are different and that they choose not to do, and we can't force them to do that. But we can be the example that we want them to follow. We can teach them the joy that can come from doing this kind of thing. So your children, they don't want to get rid of some of their toys, and you say, okay, well, if we get rid of some of your toys, then we can actually spend more time at the beach because we can sell these items and then get that money in return. Or, well, we're not going to get those things because we're trying to save up for something, and teaching them that there's joy and there's pride in being able to save up for something rather than just spend money on things that only bring us that temporary joy or that temporary high. So we can actually be advocates, and we can teach them how to live more in line with their values as well, and the things that bring them joy. And that's the best we can do, is just keeping consistent with ourselves, and giving them also time and the opportunity to realize it for themselves. I'm sure for you and for me as well, it was a long transition to any of these healthy lifestyle kind of routines and kind of ways. So being patient with how they're going to respond, and say, okay, I know at one point I was resistant as well. I know at one point that I was thinking the same thing that they were, and that's okay that they're still working through that and that they're still processing that. Let's see, another one is, and we can't force it on them, but they can be attracted to the change. And so if you've learned about the law of attraction, you're attracting them to these good things through your example. Other people have said, well, I still like it, but I don't need it and I don't have space for it. And so some of you have learned about the KonMari method, and you've learned about, does this spark joy? So you hold each item and you're like, does this spark joy? And I have kind of a funny story with this one. I love dresses. And at one point I had so many dresses, and I was like, they all spark joy. I love them all. I want to keep them all. And I actually still had to put a limit on myself, because as we're getting ready to move, it was like, I can't keep all of these. I can't take all of these with me. And so I set a limit on myself, and I said, okay, I'm going to keep my favorite 5 dresses, or I'm going to keep my favorite 7 dresses, or whatever it was. And then I know that those top 7 or those top 5 are the ones that I'm really going to wear regularly. And they do bring me joy, and they bring me the most joy out of any of them. So that's another way that you can also work through if you've been struggling with the does this spark joy method. So just an idea for that one. I also helped a friend recently with this next one. What do I do with mementos and gifts? Say art from your kids, and it's something that it has something attached to it. It's a keepsake or something that you treasure, and you're like, okay, this was a gift from someone else. If there are things that hold that sentimental value, but you have too many of them to keep track of, or you're not even able to really picture them, one of the things that you can do for your children's art is choose a couple pieces that really bring you a lot of joy and that you really enjoy seeing around, and put them in frames and have them actually up on the wall or part of your decor. And that way you actually get to see them regularly, and so they're a better use and they serve a stronger purpose than just being piled a whole bunch of them in a box. And that's going to help you to move away from that. The other thing is also taking photos of those things to remember them before donating them to someone who can put them to better use. And so say somebody gave you a really interesting outfit from their culture, and you're like, but they gave this to me and it's really special to me, but I never wear it, and I really think it could be better used by somebody who actually would wear it. And so you take a picture of it and you preserve that picture and that memory, and you remember who that person is and you appreciate it, but you don't necessarily have to keep all of the clutter and all of those mementos around you all the time. But you can go back and visit those memories if that's something that is of value to you. And let's see, and the final one that I have for you guys is, we ask about do I sell these items or do I donate them? I'm not really sure how I should go about this. And the best answer I have for you is asking yourself a couple questions. Do I need the money? Are there things that are really expensive in here that I would like to, maybe get the money for so that I can use it for something else? Or are these items that, I would like to donate to people who are more in need, and I don't have, maybe reasons for just donating it would be not having the time to list it. So you can sell it on Facebook, eBay, Amazon. You can advertise for a garage sale and try to sell it all at once. If you have that kind of time and you have items of value that you're like, okay, these are still hold a lot of value, you can do those kind of things. But it's really going to be up to your ultimate goal. Is your ultimate goal to just release the stress and be like, okay, I'm just going to donate it. I just want this stuff out. I just want to get rid of it. Or are you looking to maybe pay off some of your debt with this? That's a huge one. It's like you can sell your stuff and you can actually pay down a lot of your debt just from decluttering. So that's one of the huge benefits that can come from this. And so those are kind of the top 8 questions that I really get asked a lot. And if you'd like more information on this, I do have another YouTube video for, I believe it's minimalist lifestyle tips that you can check out. I'd also suggest that if you're wanting to create more of a concrete plan, I actually have a masterclass that I'll list in the description. And that's going to help you to set down a solid plan, and then you can even book a call with me at the end of that, because I'm going to help you to learn how to implement that plan. And so it's a really, really helpful masterclass. So I'm really glad to be able to offer this material to you and get you really started on this process, because we all want a healthier lifestyle. We want to declutter. We don't want to be overwhelmed. We don't need to be overwhelmed and stressed. And there are ways to simplify your life, but it's going to take some planning and some preparation, some deep breaths, and maybe some meditation and some husas, like calming yourself down. But getting rid of clutter in your life is definitely possible. And so I don't want you to lose hope in that, and kind of just let it happen and take your time with it and enjoy the process. And as always, never lose sight of yourself in the service of others. Until next week, I'll see you guys then.